Okay, so just got back home from finally seeing Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Now, I'm going to be honest, I hated that title when I first heard it. And you know what? I hate it even more now. It's a stupid title, Rise of Skywalker. Just sort of stupid. Made more kind of dumb by the fact that I'm sorry, I wish I felt differently, but my initial feeling right now after having seen it is that movie was hot trash. It had the quality of, hey, we're gonna get drunk or high and say a bunch of cool stuff that we think would be cool on index cards, and then we're gonna shuffle them together, and then we're gonna make sure we take out anything that looks like anything likable or development. And I get that, people had a problem with Last Jedi. I don't really understand that much of a, well, I mean, I can kind of understand the problem with The Last Jedi to a certain extent. It did have a certain subversion of expectations with it. But I thought they made a lot of good points. There was a lot of stuff. I mean, even, you do kind of have to let certain things go to move forward. There was a talk about balance. There was a talk about, the actual, what nature actually is, um, and therefore what the force kind of actually is. And then this movie's like, no, fuck it, fuck you, fuck that, fuck you, fuck everything we did before. And in an attempt to sort of like, okay, I want to course correct. I'm J.J. Abrams, so I automatically know how to course correct from what other people did. Instead of taking what was there before with Last Jedi, and okay, maybe there's some stuff you didn't like, but not just completely saying fuck you about it, which is pretty much what he did. There was some cool stuff. There was good bits where you had good sort of J.J. Abrams dialogue with some things. His whole part where Ray and Poe are bitching at each other about the Falcon and BB-8 and all this other stuff, and that was pretty good. There were some places where they did kind of seem where they you could tell they were trying to show kind of Finn and Poe actually being in a relationship. At one point, it almost looked like they were kind of holding hands under the table, stuff like that. So that's cool. But then again, there was some random other Daft Punk chick that showed up part like halfway through the movie that apparently Poe knows and maybe had kind of a thing with her for before and was kind of hitting on her again anyway too. Um, who was all of course did a like a random 180 of, hey, I'm not getting involved with this, I'm getting the fuck out of here, and here's just one thing that I'm going to use to get myself out of here, and then something happens, oh no, you take it. Like, I don't know these other people, but I know you, so you take it. And all of a sudden, I'm going to show up at the end in the big cavalry thing, and everything's going to be okay. And then Poe's going to hit on her kind of again, but oh, then there's Finn again. Oh, we're going to throw that in there. And then we're going to throw these other people who are also ex-stormtroopers, and we're going to throw them in there at this one thing needlessly. I mean, it was purposeless that they were there on the planet that they were on. There was no fucking point to them. Um, and then, but oh no, they're gonna come back later, and they're gonna ride the not horses that they were riding on this planet, and that's how we're gonna do stuff on the thing. Like, okay, but I mean, if they really wanted to get that, they could have went to the Monte Carlo planet and got the not horses from there and ridden them then there too, sort of thing. And then, the Emperor comes back and it has these thousands of ships that all have Death Star powerful laser things on them to destroy planets, and there's a bajillion of them. But because the planet X gold X fucking Jesus bullshit, whatever the fuck that was, that they couldn't just say Korriban or Morriban, Korriban, which is supposed to be some Sith world, but wasn't Korriban, which is already in canon. It's not even Legends or Extended Universe Star Wars anymore. It's actually in canon now. That's fucking Korriban, which is this planet. But no, it's this other fucking place that may or may not had a whole fucking hooded population, maybe, or maybe didn't. Were they all force projects? Where some people were there and some were, apparently there. This whole thing was this big, like fucking coliseum of them, and but were they actually there? Were they echoes? Who the fuck know? And who the fuck cares? So there was, he didn't know what the fuck to do with Kylo Ren. That was all over the goddamn place. And okay, so you wanted to have him have a redemption thing, so he went way far super evil in the beginning, but then kind of has like a redemption thing throughout, kind of thing. And it was just he was Adam Driver. I mean, Adam Driver's a good actor, but he's kind of clunky physically, and they made his entire character a clunky character. They try to do some stuff with. Come here, make this easy for me for once, please. They try to do some stuff with kind of building in new force powers, and they kind of like the one thing from Last Jedi that they kind of brought in and did, and they were kind of showing a few times. They were borderline doing that sequel thing where it was, hey, you know how in the sequel in the first movie we had this one scene where they did this one thing and that was cool and people liked it. So when in the sequel we're gonna have that one thing a billion times bigger and show up all the fucking time. Like they kind of were borderline with that, with the sort of being able to kind of move, basically just transport matter between places, and they could actually like interact with each other in that kind of like force connection thing, but be half beamed towards each other, and then but they could actually physically manipulate the environment and things, and that was kind of brought over a little bit, but then it really wasn't, because it ended up, even the dice ended up being just something too, but people could still interact with it. They could still kind of touch Luke and interact with the dice that he gave Leia and everything like that. Um, so I guess they were kind of got brought in, and they used it at the end. Basically all the stuff that there was like, oh well, we're going to use this at the end for a thing, was almost sort of just pointless. It was, I thought the actors overall did a really good job with stuff. So they were kind of doing the best they can with what they had, and what they had was a fucking hot garbage mess of all over the goddamn place. And you know what? I call bullshit on that whole thing where they didn't have Rose in it barely at all. And that I call bullshit that the reason why they didn't have her was because she had so many scenes with Leia, and then they couldn't deal with all the CG and the younging thing, and the um since she passed away and all this other stuff. You had 2 years to put this movie out, 3 years or so, or something like that, since she died, to put this movie out. You could have fucking figured out something better to do, or redid it to give her a fucking better part. But she was, it just seemed like, okay, we're gonna fan service a lot of the douchebag fans. So we're gonna kind of have a Sith planet that should be Korriban. So the people who are like, oh, cool, Sith planet. It's like I'm sorry, they kind of had like a weird haunted house thing going with it, and part of it was kind of cool, and like the big monolith statues, and some of the lighting and everything like that was kind of neat. Okay. Uh, but then it was like, oh, so we're gonna have a Sith planet. Sith planet's awesome. Well, we already have one, and we have established kind of what it looks like. But fuck that, we're not gonna do that. Um, well, we hated, people fucking hated Rose, which was bullshit, because she was an awesome character, and it had probably one of the most important lines in any sort of like fantasy or epic or action movies anyway. I'm sorry, the whole point of, we're going to win by saving what we love, not fighting what we hate, I think is super fucking important. And people fucking hated her. Shin, come here. Buddy, you're killing me. Come on, get your spot. Get your spot. Come on. Come on. Come on, get your spot. Come on. Get your spot. Bring it in. Bring it in, buddy. There we go. See, now your sister's going to come up here because she's got to have her spot. Thank you. Thank you for the kiss. That was very sweet. You coming up? You going to do this too? You going to bring it on in, little girl? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, I call bullshit. And throwing Dominic Monaghan, whatever, fucking Mary from Lord of the Rings in there is kind of like a guy. Okay, great. What the fuck was his point? I mean, literally anyone could have been that. But they kind of had, it was like, oh, well, we're going to have him on there, so there's going to be a purpose to him, and no. And then, what, they're talking about, well, Disney, was kind of nixing a whole Finn and Poe thing, but but of course, Disney will kind of be progressive up to a point. Here's these ancillary people, who, there's two women kissing after everything kind of wins, and they kind of had that even with things like Once Upon a Time and everything like that. It was, when Ruby, who's, Little Red Riding Hood's kind of fantasy thing, ends up hooking up with Dorothy. And, that was, I mean, they like kissed and hooked up and went away together and kind of happily ever after sort of thing. And it seemed like kind of a big thing, but it's like they'll have that progressiveness on the ancillary parts. But if it's the main thing, it's a little shaky. They brought in a little bit of an idea of, a dyad, so with Rey and Kylo Ren, or I guess just Ben Skywalker again now. Again, it was, her life was sort of like a force answer balancing out where Kylo Ren had gone. All those things were going to come kind of in a faded way, to balance them out with that. See, there's the kitty. There's a kitty. Say hi, Lala Bear. Okay. But no, she's got to be a Palpatine, and it's Palpatine's granddaughter, and it was the initial idea was, the parents were trying to make sure that he wasn't going to kill her, but oh no, at the end, I wasn't going to kill you. I wanted you to do this thing. So the Emperor, who's like hooked up to some weird sort of like mechanical arm thing with no pupils, who was, created this huge fuck fleet with these Death Star guns on all these Star Destroyers and all this other stuff. He wants Rey to kill him so his spirit will enter her. Really creepily rapey there, Grandpa, by the way. Because somehow now he's all Sith. All the Sith ever. And then through her, she'll be Empress of this empire that's super badass. The final order, the final thing of all Sith ever was going to do this. And that was going to be her, but you got the idea he'd possess her somehow too, which is really fucking creepy. It's creepy to be like, I'm going to possess you anyway, especially if you're like an actual person to another person, let alone that's your fucking granddaughter. But then, no, it's all right, because Rey is now all the Jedi. So listening for at one point, and I know I'm going all over the place because there's just so much to be like, fuck you about. here's a bunch of Jedi voices, from the shows and the other movies and stuff saying, Rey, we're here with you and all this other stuff. Okay, and she has one of the things I did think was cool because she has Leia's lightsaber as well as Anakin's that was Luke's for a while. They actually did go into Leia trained as a Jedi for a while, which is from the extended universe and or Legends now, whatever. But she stopped because she stopped because her son would turn evil. Like, why would that make you? Wouldn't you want to not stop? Because then that way you would be more powerful to help not turn him evil. Like, but what? It kind of didn't, but it was cool because she had already built her lightsaber. You saw her actually kind of beating Luke in this training thing and everything like that. So cool. Like, I dug that part. That was neat. Um, so, and then, having her at least supervising or kind of, in terms of Ray's thought at least was like Leia was kind of supervising her training, was kind of her teacher to a certain extent. And it seemed like Leia had kind of set up a course and all this. And Ray kind of thought of her as a teacher with that. And okay, that stuff was cool. I did like that. So I remember I got to text my friend about that. Uh, and they kind of were able to write Leia out by, interfering with this duel uh, that Rey and Kylo Ren had, and because Rey was sometimes really kind of groovy and zen, and then sometimes was real divided and all over the damn place. It kind of didn't. It was sort of like it wasn't. It didn't feel consistent. It felt like when we needed Rey to be badass and cool and zen, then she was that. If we didn't know what to do with her and we wanted to artificially create character development, then she was really all over the place and unbalanced. So, I mean, it was an exhausting movie. Like, it pretty much goes the entire time. You don't really get a lot of sort of rest in it. At one point, Chewbacca gets captured again, like he's like every time you turn around, between Clone Wars and Rebels and Star Wars and Solo and this that fucking Chewbacca's always getting goddamn captured. Um, but then there's a couple it just so happens that there's two transports. So the one that Rey thinks she destroys isn't the one with him. Like she has a cool thing and cuts down Kylo Ren's, TIE fighter interceptor thing and that blows up, but he gets out of that fine. And she tries to stop the transport that they think has Chewie in it, and he's, I guess, it almost looked like they were both trying to pull it down, but it was breaking, and at some point in time, she's actually able to shoot lightning out of her hand, like the Sith lightning stuff out of her hands, and blows up the transport. So she's got guilt over that, but the guilt was only sort of guilty when there was a down moment while something else was kind of going on, when they were like, oh, wait, yeah, she should feel guilty about this. And the rest of the time, it's like, we need to fucking go. So it was consistently inconsistent about it. But of course, Chewbacca, it was on a different thing and ends up getting, on the ship that's there, and she ends up feeling it. And of course, the one thing they need from the one lady who instantly turns, the Daft Punk chick lady, whatever her name was, automatically turns good. So here's the thing, they'll help you get on the ship. And they get on the ship and there's like 3 stormtroopers and they can shoot them and no problem. they're clearing out through the ship, and they end up do get captured, but then sort of saved later on by the traitor Hux, who only just wants to see Kylo Ren's kind of downfall. Okay, fine, like I can kind of understand that. But they've been doing this stuff in these movies where it's, we have this thing set up for like a couple of movies or a few episodes or whatever it is. All of a sudden now there's this one person who gets introduced now, and now he's going to be the super important person who's going to make this huge fucking change against a major character. And so they get in and off of the Star Destroyer. It's like the Ryan George thing on Screen Rant. The whole fucking movie, the entire fucking movie was like, oh, they're in a scrape right now. Oh, it's going to be they can't get out of this. It's going to be really hard. Actually, it'll be super easy, barely an inconvenience. And that's literally the entire fucking movie. Is super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, we have 16 hours before this whole fleet off of Exegol or Exgol, it's not exegesis or exegesis. That's shit like philosophical, this sort of ranting like Philip K. Dick's or anything like that. But it's some stupid fucking thing that should have been Korriban. We only have 16 hours to do that. So we're going to go all the way around the fucking galaxy, which the time jumping thing makes no fucking sense to me. It's like, okay, so we're going in hyperspeed, and that's beyond light speed. Okay. But you have this entire galaxy to get through. Sorry. And it just seems like sometimes it's going to take us a long time to get to somewhere. And then sometimes it's like, this is all the way across the galaxy. We're there in an hour. Which is it? Is it going to take, a couple weeks to get somewhere, or is it going to take an hour to get everywhere? It makes no goddamn sense. We can send this entire fleet through this hell storm of stuff to get to this planet, and Lando and Chewie on the Falcon are going to go all over the entire galaxy to be able to rally ships and people to come help us, when last time we called for that, no one fucking came. And they had one line to explain it away, that Poe was saying. It was like, well, last time, it seemed hopeless. Now we have hope. Now we have a plan. Now we have a thing, so people will come. That was it. That was the only kind of explanation for that. This huge armada comes to save their ass and everything. And, there's a briefest cameo from fucking Wedge Antilles, and it looked like he was on the Falcon, so that's kind of cool. But he showed up for, like, what is it, 2 frames? So like 1/12 of a second or something like that. He was on there, and I was like, Wedge! And it's okay, bye. And he's never seen of again. So it's just like, yeah, the whole movie was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, well, we had to get this intel from this person. We got it, we got out, and we skipped through and everything. And oh, that was exciting. And the Falcon's on fire, and they're figuring this out, and there's some dialogue, and this happens, and I'm not going to go anywhere because I'm training. Oh, nope, I'm going to go somewhere I'm training. And not do that. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to blow stuff up, but then Luke's going to come. He's going to tell me the complete opposite of everything he was about in The Last Jedi. The one redeeming factor with that was that he admitted that he was afraid, and that's why he did what he did. Okay, he kind of said that before too. It makes sense. It was like, oh, no, it was okay if we were going to burn all the books and let the Jedi die with me, and I came to this island and die, but don't throw away my lightsaber, and you have to be a Jedi and go kill the Emperor. In a brief, again, it's like they try to explain everything in just like this one sort of throwaway line. The Emperor was behind Snoke. The Emperor created Snoke, and there's these vats with like, fucking Rey from Neon Genesis Evangelion sort of vats of floaty bits of Snoke um, in them. And oh, okay, so the Emperor was behind him. The Emperor to Kylo Ren was every voice he's ever had in there. Snoke and Vader and everything else. All this other stuff was the Emperor controlling everything. Okay, I guess. I mean, if there would have been some sort of any lead into that. Oh, if J.J. Abrams' thing was like, well, it would have been weird for Palpatine to not show up in this. I mean, it's kind of his thing with this too. Everything. Okay. If you really thought that, there would have been at least some tease, even a tiny little niblet of something. If you truly believe that and had this set up, you would have put something in Force Awakens, but you didn't. There's nothing in Force Awakens that says that Palpatine was that fucking important to you, except that you wanted to go back and say, hey, you know what? Everything Last Jedi said about, nature and having to move on and balance, fuck that. I'm going to fanboy this bitch up. So, I don't know. I felt like I'm just kind of like riding the high of the garbage right now after, just getting out, seeing it a couple hours ago. I had to drive home and handle the animals and stuff. Right, buddy, you gotta go potty outside. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Right, Kitty? Well, you didn't have to go potty outside, but we had to give you attention too, huh? Pretty kitty. Little princess. Um, so yeah, I mean, apparently, oh yeah, and apparently somehow the Emperor drained life force energy from Kylo Ren or Ben now because he was slightly redeemed because oh in Star Wars if you're a force user at least you can basically commit genocide for untold amount of years but then when you're a good guy again all's forgiven. So Ben comes back and kind of helps save Rey a little bit and but she actually has to fucking pull his ass out of the fire too with their mind transport shit. Um, he's fucked up and somehow saves himself from falling. But the Emperor was stealing like chi from them or something like that. And oh, your connection and you're this and you're that. I'm taking your life force and now I'm the one. It was almost like there was a whole movie that was missed or a whole show or these major points that were missed and skipped. So now when they said these in these almost sort of not quite throwaway lines, but something was mentioned like once, then that was supposed to be okay. It's like I don't know if that's just maybe more realistic, but that's not how you build a fictional story. If you want something to make sense, you just don't kind of throw it in like later at this line. Oh, you guys have this connection. We've mentioned it one other time in this movie. The other times we talked about it and explained it as Snoke put it there and bridged it and put it together. And the rest of the canon in Star Wars was sort of like, well, the Force will have this will that will correct itself. Hence, fucking Anakin. Anakin's sort of immaculate conception was there as a counterbalance to the Sith becoming as powerful as they were, Plagueis and Sidious becoming as powerful as they became, and everything like that. So he was sort of born to kind of balance that. So you have Rey, who's kind of there to help bring back in, course correct from like Snoke and Kylo Ren, especially since Luke buggered off. So whatever connection they had, and they talked about it earlier, and Kylo Ren in the beginning is, I'm gonna find this, now he's Supreme Leader, so he's just fucking around the whole galaxy looking for not Korriban, Exegol or X-Gel or fucking XFL or whatever the fuck it was. Stupid ass name. And so you're the Supreme Leader of this basically empire-like thing, and you have no problem just going onto a place and slaughtering a bunch of people through a fight to take this thing to try and find this planet. And after one really brief conversation with the Emperor, you're his boy, but you're not, because you're not going to kill Rey. You're still going to try and bring her with you. I don't. I mean, it was just all over the goddamn place. Again, it was like, all right, well, we have 4 people writing these comic books, and then we're just going to take pieces from these different issues and, like shuffle them like cards in together. Oh, this would be cool if we do this, and that'll be cool if we do that. And oh, no, Hux is the traitor, but he's only the traitor because he doesn't want Kylo Ren to, succeed. So now the new guy who's the general that just gets introduced, shoots him and is now the kind of like imperial bad guy sort of thing. Oh, okay, great, random person who we just met. Oh, ex-stormtroopers, people we just met. You're supposed to be important now. Okay, you're an uh, an African woman who was an ex-stormtrooper taken as a kid, just like Finn. Here's the thing: if you want character development, are they related? If they were both taken as kids, they're both seem to be roughly the same age. They're both of what we would consider African descent, whatever it would be in there. I don't know. Um, what if they're brother and sister? And Finn has this whole thing where he's trying to be like, even told Han, it was like, hey, no, we'll use the force and everything. And Han's like, that's not how it works. But he talks about in this a couple of times, like, the force brought me in, and there's times where he's almost got like a Luke and Leia like connection with Rey. Okay, so his faith in the force has maybe allowed him to tap into it a little bit. Okay, like I can kind of get behind that. And now he meets this other woman, and what if now they were related? And that's why he found them, because, we've talked about family twice in this movie, so now we're going to talk about, family for people who didn't have family, like Finn and this other girl. Okay, like that'd be interesting. Now what if, because they had to have some random fucking conversation between this woman and Lando Calrissian, even though there's, tons of other people that would have been way more important for him to talk to, and they're talking about, where are you from and everything like that. What if, let's explore this, Lando is Finn and this other girl's dad, and they're brother and sister. Like, okay, that's something family we can know. I mean, if we're going to throw in all this other shit, we might as well fucking throw that in too. I mean, to me, at least, that'd be interesting. It was like, hey, you know what? We got, Leia and Han's kid's now dead. And, even though he never trained into the Force, in this power of the Force, he disappears. His body disappears. His body disappears at the same time Leia's did. And Leia used the last of her energy to break up part of that duel to give Rey the chance to kind of have a little comeback and, almost kill Kylo Ren, like stab him through the gut with his own shitty lightsaber. But then she heals him. And when she heals him, now magically he's good again. and he sees this vision of Han Solo that's not really a thing. Maybe it's his memory. He's kind of solidly there. Is that actual memory? And they kind of repeat some of the dialogue from the first one, have the face touching moment, and then it was like, no, Kylo Ren's dead. Like you get a thing like, okay, Rey stabbing him killed Kylo Ren, and now he's redeemed and Ben Solo, and he throws his shitty lightsaber away, so they can have a moment with him holding the Anakin Luke one for a hot fucking second before he basically just gets like soul raped from the Emperor and then tossed off a fucking cliff. But he learns he figured out because Rey was able to heal him and some other snake worm monster, but he didn't know about that. But she can, like the Baba Yizzle, or my friend Fritz called him a yodeler, which I thought was pretty good. Um, so she can do, the Reiki healing hands thing or anything like that. So he knew that could be done. So he uses her to bring her back to life because she's dead. Cause she's like eyes open, not moving, dead. So he kind of brings her back to life and heals her from her exhaustion with fighting the Emperor, who disintegrated himself because he, even after Revenge of the Sith, didn't learn that if, oh shit, my force lightning is getting shot back onto me, maybe I should stop shooting force lightning. Like, he apparently didn't learn that because she was able to fight him off and then picked up, both lightsabers and kind of punging Taiji energy, the force back to him, and he disintegrated himself. Okay, like, uh, uh, someone takes my hand and does the what? Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. I'm going to try and get my hand away from them. I mean, if now all of a sudden, like, I'm, I don't even fucking know because it's so stupid. If I'm outside with a hose and all of a sudden the wind kicks up and I'm getting drenched, I'm not going to keep spraying the hose into the wind so I keep getting drenched. If I'm cleaning my car or watering roses or something like that, I'm going to, aim it down or away from me. Or I'm going to, crimp up the hose so I don't keep getting fucking drenched. And that's just water. Can't imagine what I would do to not fucking electrocute myself. This isn't hard. Why would he keep shooting lightning if it's fucking hitting himself and tearing him apart? Why would he keep doing that? Was now he caught in some sort of loop where he couldn't let go of it? Which I don't see how it is, because it's not like Rey was actually pulling the energy out of him. She was, deflecting and defending herself with lightsabers. And if she was doing anything, it would be like Peng Jing from Tai Chi, where it's just sort of like, putting that sort of protective bubble, or even like Liu Jing, like yield and redirect. She's not actually, you know, catching it and pulling it out of him like string or bubble tape, or she didn't cut him open, is pulling his intestines out, and he has no power over that. He had power to not do that, but he didn't. And so this way you finally kill the Emperor, and Rey didn't strike him down in anger. Because there was this whole thing where, he opened up the thing, he could see all the ships and people going, so, okay. I mean, so his whole thing was he wasn't trying to kill Rey. He was trying to get her so she could come and kill him, and then his spirit enters her. So either she had to kill him in some sacrifice or strike him down in anger, and he'd be this sacrifice. So after cheating death and building this whole thing for like 30 years or whatever he's doing, he's completely like, yeah, go ahead, granddaughter, fucking kill me. I'm going to like almost rapey possess you, I guess, and we'll rule the whole galaxy. So he did all this other thing, set all this up, spent all this time thinking about it. Is so fucking powerful in the Force, but he couldn't stop shooting lightning from his hands long enough to not execute himself. After he already had a time in Revenge of the Sith where he had mutilated himself, sorry, that's his self isn't a fucking word, mutilated himself, mutilated his face, deformed himself by not stopping shooting lightning at a Jedi with a fucking lightsaber. So also he's stealing energy out of Kylo Ren and or Ben Skywalker now, or whatever the fuck he's supposed to be, and Rey. So he stole all their energy, or their connection to the Force, or their connection to each other, and the connection to the Force. Either way, they're still Force sensitive. So go use the Force, and Ben can come up and heal Rey, and then he dies, and then he fades, like Obi-Wan and Yoda and Luke. And at the same time he fades, the Leia's body, who's already been kind of laying in state for who the fuck knows how many hours now, like maybe a few hours now, because Rey still had to go to Jedha Island, burn the ship she was in, and say, I'm not going anywhere because I don't want to sit on the throne of the Sith. I'm a Palpatine. I'm never going to do anything again. I'm not going anywhere. And then Luke, Force Ghost Luke is like, yeah, when I did, and I can understand and be like, yeah, when I did this like same thing, it wasn't a good idea. Maybe it's not a good idea for you either. Like that would have been same sort of thing. It was like, yeah, and what happened when I did this? Did things get better when I ran away, or should I have faced this so things didn't get to this point to begin with? Instead he goes, no, you have to be a Jedi and fight Palpatine. Which is like the same shit Obi-Wan and Yoda kind of were bullshitting him with earlier, because I mean, let's be honest, they kind of manipulated stuff. Like they could have dealt with things way differently with both Luke and Leia with raising them, but they chose not to. Um, and then Yoda was massively super unfair to Luke. Like later on when he's like, you had the opportunity to condition him exactly the way you wanted, and you fucking didn't. So Luke kind of gives that advice to Rey, and then they get his X-wing up, and then she immediately is sending a signal and can find the place and can get through it. Okay, great. And it doesn't take her weeks to go from here to here to here to here to here and over. It doesn't take weeks for everyone else to get there. Everyone else can get there. And the Millennium Falcon can fly all over the entire galaxy and gather a massive, huge armada of ships to help destroy these things in moments. And the Emperor, after stealing the Force and energy and chi from Rey and Ben, can now put so much Force lightning up into the atmosphere that he destroys all these ships. But not his, everyone else's. So, I mean, the idea of the Emperor still being behind everything and kind of creating Snoke seemed interesting, but had no lead up, and the payoff was throwaway at best. I don't even care that they didn't really explain how the Emperor survived. He even mentions, I had a fall one time. So he, at the very least, remembers it. Now, it might be like sort of was a Darth Scion, I think, that was just so pissed off and everything, he would get killed and then will himself alive again. Like, maybe it was that. Like, they threw them down the thing, and even though he had some weird sort of Force explosion, that's not a clone of Palpatine. That's him. Excuse me. Just willed himself back alive. Like he learned enough from Darth Plagueis to will himself back alive. Maybe. Okay, like I can kind of buy that just because, okay, I have enough, Star Wars background to be able to buy that. Okay. But I mean, it was sort of like, oh, we're gonna do this, and maybe we'll have a hologram or a little bit of a voice here or there, but it was pretty much non sequitur to the end. And again, I don't think they knew what the fuck to do with Kylo Ren. They added in all these random people doing random stuff, some of the relationship stuff that they did, and so again, it's J.J. Abrams, so some of the dialogue, at the very least, was actually pretty good. Um, but I know part of it just had that sort of sequel curse where, well, this thing was cool before, so we're gonna do it, you know, at 11 this time. It was good before. We're gonna do it 15 times and do it bigger than before. You know, there's a whole bit of Rey goes to Tatooine to the Lars moisture farm, which is apparently abandoned, like in this planet where everything just sort of gets reclaimed or scavenged or anything. No one's touched that farm in 50 years. Okay. And Rey buries Leia's and the Anakin Luke lightsaber that she repaired there at the farm, and someone asks her who she is, and she's like, looks over and sees the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia, and names herself Rey Skywalker. I don't know. It's just I don't know. Like I remember when Phantom Menace came out, I actually saw it twice in the theater because I saw it the first time and it was like kind of a piece of shit and I didn't get it. I was like, wait, I didn't. Wait, Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor are in this, and I knew who they were when they came out. I already knew who Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor were, and I knew Natalie Portman was a good actress, and it was Star Wars back again. And I remember watching it and going out and be like, the fuck? I don't get it. And so I actually went to see it again in the theater, and I'm like, no, I get it. I didn't like it. It was bad. Attack of the Clones was a steaming pile of shit with some of the worst dialogue that's ever been written. And just a hot mess of characters all over the place. Like, I guess if you wanted to do an homage to George Lucas, this was good because there was characters that you had built in a certain way not acting that way. I mean, come on, how many different in just the prequel movies, let alone Clone Wars, how many different Padme Amidalas were there? I'm not talking about her bodyguards or doubles or anything like that. I'm talking just the one played by Natalie Portman. There was, the Queen one who was, maybe younger, a little naive, still kind of compassionate, and but serious about doing right by her people and stuff. Okay, an Attack of the Clones, that one was there, and a sort of badass gunfighter was there, but then there was the you know oh man, like CW ABC Family overly melodramatic teeny romance Amidala. Um, and then somehow this bastion of political compassion and liberalism is super cool with this dude who's like creeping on her bad, just genociding a whole village. Oh, he was sad his mom died, so that justified him murdering everyone. And he admits that, and she's sort of like, about it. And then you have Revenge of the Sith Padme Amidala, where it's, somehow Anakin, the most powerful Jedi ever, doesn't sense that his wife is pregnant with twins, and also doesn't notice that she's, what, 7 months at least far gone, pregnant, when he hugs her for the first time that he's seen her in that entire time. She can't tell. I mean, she's pretty fucking pregnant when he first sees her at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. You can't tell just by hugging her that something's going on. There's that one. And then she's still kind of a little bit like the strong liberal leader. And then she's like, "Oh, Anakin, you're breaking my heart. I'm going to die because I'm sad." Which hasn't been a thing for like 120 years since Gothic literature kind of went, I think we went a little overboard with this. She died because she's sad, even though she's got twins. But she's sad. Not, oh yeah, Anakin force choked the fuck out of her, and now she's in a coma, and we can barely save these two babbies, even though we're in like super advanced medical technology. Nope, she's sad, so she dies. It was that level of sort of like, what the fuck do we do with these people? And it was, what the fuck do we do with these people? And then let's throw these other people at it too. And we're going to have these horrible things happen, but they're super easy, barely an inconvenience to get out of. And then we have 16 hours to stop this thing, and we're going to run around the galaxy and do a month's worth of fucking around all over the place within that amount of time. And it makes the sort of quantum tunneling from like Game of Thrones that they picked and chose whenever they wanted. I just made that just seem like just reasonable travel time. I don't know. It was, oh God, there was so much. And I wanted to like it. And I left off of spoilers, and there was stuff, little things here or there was cool. And I wanted to see how they would deal with Leia, with Carrie Fisher passing. And, excuse me. Yeah, there was a ton of stuff I wanted to see and stuff that I was looking forward to. And it was just sort of, the cool parts of it were just drowned in this sea of sort of overcompensating for incompetence. It's like they didn't know what the fuck to do with anybody. And J.J. Abrams was just sort of like, I don't like what you did. It was like bad fan fiction. It was, I don't like what you did in this thing, so I'm going to just erase it, do it better, have weird little romances. I think this is cool, so we're going to do that. And I think this is cool, so we're going to do that. And this is cool, we're going to do that. And you have, your buddy reading it like, but wait a minute. Like, how is all that going to make sense? It's just going to, man, you just don't get it. And that's really what it seemed like. Anyway, I might have some retractions or additions or something like that. I went off on that whole thing about fucking Amidala, and I just feel like I'm repeating myself right now and everything else. So, yeah, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Kind of pissed off about, I'm pissed off. It's a movie. It's, is it really worth getting super emotionally, worked over by it? But, I kind of am, because it is kind of important, and, it's something it's kind of important to me. I've thought a lot about it, stuff I've shared with people, my whole life, and, it's kind of been that thing. And I still have that sort of Oscar Wilde idea of, once you put out a piece of art or a piece of work, to a certain extent, it doesn't belong to you anymore. And if J.J. Abrams really wanted that much power and control over things, maybe he shouldn't have left the second movie up to somebody else. But once you did leave the second movie up to someone else and you're doing the third movie, you don't really have the right to just shit on it. Take what you have and try and carry the ball through. You know, if you're, you know, you're playing I was going to use a football analogy, but it kind of doesn't work because you can't really do a lot of lateral stuff. But if, you know, you're playing basketball and, you know, someone on your team passes you the ball, you don't just sort of walk off the court and then come back on the court dribbling the ball on like a different angle and expect it to work. You know, it's like, no, 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 you can't do that. That's against the rules. You know, there's a certain things you got to go through. No, I'm just going to do this way anyway. This is what a toddler does. And they feel, you know, this isn't fair, so I'm just going to do this the way I want it. You can't do that. You know, and you can't do that and be taken seriously and be taken as an adult. You know, so I know other people have liked it and everything. Great, cool. I know I'm gonna buy it. I know I'm gonna watch it. You know, multiple more times and everything like that. You know, I'm gonna try and keep finding stuff I liked about it, so it's still watchable to me in the future. But this initial first night watching it after I got home, kind of fuck you. Not to you, lovely people, but to sort of J.J. Abrams and allowing that piece of shit to get out. So, John, it's me. Like, subscribe, all that good YouTube-y stuff. Thanks. Bye.